Dr. Daniel Griffin.
And I'm Dixon DePondere.
And I thought I heard an elephant a moment ago. Where are we? Are we?
Close your eyes in your deepest, darkest Africa.
Do we need to go there to worry about lice?
Oh, lice? Oh,
so
no.
Today we're going to be
Absolutely
discussing
not.
lice.
No, you can just go to your local kindergarten.
Well, so what? Tell us about lice. You're good on these scientific names and things.
Okay.
Like what are lice?
So, well, let's see. There are two kinds of lice that infect humans routinely. One is called head lice, and one is called body lice. The head lice is called Pediculus humanus capitis. The body lice is called Pediculus humanus corporis. There's a third louse, not as common as the other two, called Pithris pubis. It's called the pubic louse. Together, they cause a great deal of uncomfort in people. And one of them, not all of them, one of them, the body louse, is famous for causing epidemics of typhus, epidemic typhus. And in fact, it wiped out Napoleon's army during the Russian campaign, which led eventually to his downfall, basically. So lice have played a huge role in history. So there is a wonderful book, I believe it's by Hans Zinzer, called Rats, Lice, and History.
Okay.
And if you read that book, you will learn all about the details of these epidemics that rats with, of course, plague and the flea, and lice with epidemic typhus have raised havoc with the human population since they've been in existence.
So this is not just an inconvenience.
No, it's not.
The problem can be a little bit beyond that. So
Exactly.
It is nice. We broke it down already into our head lice,
Yep.
our body lice, and our pubic lice.
Exactly.
And so maybe we should talk about one at a time.
Okay.
So let's talk about head lice.
Right. Well, that's a very common problem throughout the world, regardless of economic status. Head lice can be found on the head of the royals, as well as on the heads of the subjects. So it's very common in daycare centers for pre-kindergarten children. You got the children in the schools, and they're all gathered around, let's say, a game of blocks or sand pile or whatever else they play. And because a lot of the current styles are long hair, particularly in females, but not necessarily, the contact between individuals is enough to sometimes transfer lice from one person to another.
Yeah, I wasn't going to demonstrate that because I don't feel like we're that comfortable with one another.
You might have a problem.
But whenever you see children playing, a lot of times you'll notice like their heads are touching.
They are. That's true.
And I
they
think
are.
that's one of the. So we'll talk a little bit about head
that's
lice.
true.
We're going to talk about transmission. So this is an ectoparasite.
Yep.
It's a little creature that's living on the surface.
This is true.
And it is.
That's another good point to say.
Yeah.
Where do they actually live?
This is excellent. So the head lice are living.
The head lice live grasping shafts of hair, and they actually suck blood. So in order to feed, they have to let go of this shaft of hair, and they have to find the scalp. They have to insert their proboscis, draw out some blood, and then go back up the hair shaft to digest it and to develop into the next stage, because it's an insect, and so therefore insects go from one stage to the next by shedding their outer skin, their ectoskeleton, eventually becoming adults. The adults mate. The males continue to live, as far as I know. And the females then go on to the business of laying eggs. And the eggs are laid on the shaft of the hair. And they're very easy to see, and they're often called nits as a result. People have a common name for them. And
Yes.
it takes a while for them to grow up, maybe 2 to 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
At which point they are jet propelled out of their eggshell into the environment of the scalp, where they grasp onto a hair shaft and begin their own life cycle.
Yeah, no, and I think that's helpful when we think about the diagnosis of lice. The lice are living on the hair shafts. Their grabbers are genetically
Right. We should say
selected
that.
for specific hair diameter,
Correct.
and so they're going to grab. And actually, that's going to affect certain ethnicities, depending upon the thickness, coarseness of the hair, are more or less susceptible to the head lice.
Exactly.
They're going to lay the eggs, which are actually going to be affixed to the lower part of the hair, which is then as the hair grows out, the knit is going to come out with it.
Right.
People used to have the idea that, it was the sharing of hats and garments. We now...
You know, I did grow up with that mythology.
Did you grow up with that mythology?
Yes, I did. Yes, I certainly did. It's hard to shake that, actually.
Yeah, we now, the current teaching now that we've really looked at the transmission, it usually is direct content. And when the heads are close to each other, right, the adult lice are actually moving directly from one person to another. Now,
dear.
As we talk about the fact that they're living on the hair shafts, this ties directly into how we make the diagnosis.
Right.
And sometimes you can physically see adult lice scurrying about in a heavy infestation. And infestation is the right word.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's not really an infection, it's an infestation. It's ectoparasites living on the surface.
Exactly.
One of the things that we recommend, I'm going to have diagnosis and treatment tied together here.
Good.
One of the most sensitive ways of making the diagnosis is combing of wet hair.
Right.
So you actually get the hair wet, and there are certain combs, lice combs, which have very narrow gaps between the teeth, and then you do a wet combing technique. And a couple things can happen here. One is, as you're wet combing, you can manually be removing nits.
You can.
Which are the little eggs. You may also be scooping up the adults.
Yep.
Which are recognizable. These are macroscopic insects.
You bet.
Yeah.
So in your travels, Daniel, have you ever found any anthropological representations of nit removal?
I feel like you have a story. I feel like there's a story here.
Multiple stories of this one. I mean, I've been to a wonderful place called Angkor Wat, and Angkor Wat is in Cambodia.
Which is where I ran the 10 kilometer with the Thai princess, right?
Really?
But you tell your story.
Really? That's a better story. I want to hear your story. I was just there with my regular wife. I wasn't there with my Thai wife. But so as we were perusing the ruins of this ancient city, the purpose of which no one seems to know anything about anymore, there are these bas-relief depictions of common everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a picture of a mother and child. And the mother is in the back of the child, and she's spreading apart the hair, looking for the nits.
Wow.
Now, as we traveled to other places, we've been fortunate to travel to some other places too. One of them was to Bhutan, which is an exotic country that's sort of next to Nepal in the Himalayas, to look at the mountains and all the other wonderful things. We encountered along the road, as we were driving, that very same scene, only it was real. Mm-hmm. A mother was sitting behind her child, passing the time of day, sitting there, picking out nits. Now, finally, mm-hmm, we found ourselves in India, next to the Taj Mahal. There's a red fortress next to that you can visit. And it's overrun with monkeys. There are monkeys everywhere. And lo and behold, and I have the picture, so I could actually submit that as part of this exercise. The monkey was sitting there doing the exact same thing to its young.
Now, were these the same human lice, or are there special lice of monkeys and special of humans?
Monkey lice are monkey lice. Human lice are human lice. And never the twain shall meet. Our lice are species specific. So that's at least one good thing, because almost every species of mammal has their own species of lice.
Yeah.
So, but nitpicking.
Nitpicking,
is where
yes. Was I just nitpicking there?
Well,
I think it was an important point. But that's one of the points I want to make, is for the diagnosis to have the high degree of sensitivity we want.
Sure.
You really want to do wet combing technique. Yeah. If you just comb and you just look, your sensitivity is very low.
That's true.
But do you need high sensitivity? Well, you would want high sensitivity if you're trying to basically get the lice out of the population. Exactly. And a lot of times when you might have young children getting together for schools or camps or things like that, you'll want to screen all the children very thoroughly, because once you introduce one child with lice into they'll very quickly spread.
This is true.
So the wet combing technique, not only can it be a therapeutic, but it is the most sensitive way of diagnosing your head lice. Yeah. And you can actually do quite a bit in a lot of settings. If that's all you have as far as resources, just water to wet the hair and a nit or lice comb.
Sure.
These can do a tremendous amount. Once you've made the diagnosis and you have some resources, we might again use our permethrin cream.
You could do that.
Shaving of the scalp.
I was going to say.
That would basically remove the habitat.
It would.
And so if you do that, that is curative. And so I actually wear my hair quite short. May or may not have something to do with the fear of head lice.
I wear mine short too, but it's for another reason. I just don't produce as much hair as I used to.
And one of the things I will say is there's the double treatment. You treat with your permethrin once, but then there's a life cycle. There's all these nits that have yet to...
It didn't get the egg.
And it doesn't get the eggs. And so you treat again.
Exactly.
And also, in addition to the permethrin, you could always use one of our favorite drugs, ivermectin. And ivermectin, again, can also be used. And it would be done in a weight-based, and then it would be repeated again.
So the louse actually has to suck up the drug in its blood meal in order for that to be effective.
Exactly.
Whereas the cream is a topical.
Exactly.
Now, if you get rid of head lice that way, would you also get rid of body lice that way?
Well, let's talk about body
lice.
lice.
I would love to. It's a sort of lead-in question to the next topic.
It is a lead-in question, and I want to make...
Before we... I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. I want to make a point about now we move to body lice. And one of the things about body lice, in a sense, it's misnamed. Because body lice don't live on the body.
They do not.
They live on your clothes.
Correct.
They live in the seams of the clothes.
Right. So I wanted to finish up with head lice just briefly and say that in all of the time that we have been investigating head lice, we have never been able to implicate a disease that was transmitted by the head louse.
That is true. And just to finish off that, I think that's good that we cap it off, so to speak, the head lice, is you may think it's just a nuisance, you may think it's a hygiene issue, but two things I'll say. One, this is not a hygiene issue. This is just an exposure. Your child, you as an individual, can do an excellent job with hygiene, and actually, there are some people who suggest the better your hygiene, the more vulnerable you might be, because a more hospitable environment, less greasy, less dirty.
Perhaps.
But the other is that when the manifestation can get heavy enough, I've seen cases where the scalp becomes inflamed, and the individual can become, quite. And
the hair is matted, and it's not a. It's usually in homeless people.
Yeah, so it's not just benign. It can be.
No, that's right, and that can lead to secondary infections with itching and all this stuff.
So let's now get back to body lice.
Okay, body lice. If you put a head louse and a body louse next to each other of the same age and sex, even expert liceologists cannot tell the difference in the species. They look identical. They have the same number of legs, same number of hairs on the legs, same segments to their antennae, everything looks the same, except the biology is totally different. Instead of being a permanent resident on the host, as the head louse is, this louse chooses to live in the clothing, in the areas of the clothing that fit closest to the body, like around the belt, maybe some pant legs with elastic on them around that area also, where the shirt sleeve comes together sometimes, but it's in the clothing. So they're temporary ectoparasites of humans. They live in the clothing, but they feed on the body. Then they go back to the clothing. So the best way to catch this infection is to share clothing.
Exactly. And I think that that's one of the pearls we want to point out, that there's not a lot of evidence that you get head lice from sharing clothing, but the way that body louse is transmitted is through the sharing of clothing.
Correct. And unlike head lice, this species of louse transmits a very serious disease called epidemic typhus, which has had an enormous effect on the history of human evolution.
So the diagnosis here is you're not looking at the individual, you are looking through their clothes.
Correct.
You're looking for the body lice.
Exactly. Or the nits.
Or the nits. But you usually, I have to say, I first started seeing this when I was training in New York City, and it was quite common in the homeless individuals to find it in the lining of the clothes. How do you treat this? Well, one of the things you do is wash the clothes.
Exactly.
Wash the clothes in hot water.
That's right.
There's a certain threshold above about 149 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 65 degrees Celsius.
Exactly.
But in a lot of, we'll say, refugee centers and a lot of, there's no ability or limited resources to heat the water. So that's critical. You want to wash clothes in hot water. And because the body lice are going to come and feed, you can treat the individual with permethrin and ivermectin, and this can have some impact because when they go to feed, they're going to pick this up.
True.
But really the way to do it with like keeping your resources is focus on cleaning the clothes.
That's right. So there was this invention that occurred in Germany prior to the Second World War, a chemical synthesis of a compound, which was looked at, white powder, put up on the shelf with all the other white powders, and that substance later on turned out to be DDT. Now, DDT was not used by the German army during the Second World War, much to their chagrin, because by that time, that powder had found its way into the hands of the Allies. We learned how to synthesize it, and we made DDT as a way of preventing body lice. And during the early invasion of Italy, near the end of the Second World War, every American troop that stepped foot on Italy was down the back of their uniforms. The DDT killed all the body lice that might have been there. None of the German soldiers had that advantage, and many of the German soldiers died from epidemic typhus as the result, even though their own chemists had invented DDT to begin with. So it's one of those little bon mots of history that kind of fell through the cracks, but if it hadn't been for DDT, both sides would have suffered from epidemic typhus, and I don't know how long it would have taken us to chase them out of the boot of Italy, but it would have certainly been longer.
Well, let's use that as a segue, your mention of the cracks, the lice that like to go down to those particular areas. I think we mentioned our pubic lice.
So Pithris pubis, which is, as you look at it, if I can actually draw one with my hands, it actually has a crab-like appearance. It has much larger claws, if you wish, than the body louse or the head louse. It's totally different in shape and size. Of course, it's different in species as well. And it clings to the very thickest of hairs. It can be found in the pubic region because the pubic hair is thicker than normal body hair. But it can also be found in mustaches and eyebrows and things of this sort. And it takes little imagination to realize how they got there as well. So it's a sexually transmitted infection.
Yes. And I think that's critical when we sort of close on our pubic lice, is this is different than the other ones. This is different in many ways. The transmission is differently. Think of this as a sexually transmitted infestation.
Correct.
You may use wet combing as well to make the diagnosis.
You could shave the area.
You could shave the area. There also can often be these little blue dots that are characteristic of this. People, I think, crabs in the United States is the common referent, and people often have an idea of where they may have gotten this from.
Correct, and there are some very cute advertisements, by the way, in areas which serve crabs. Said, eat here and get crabs, kind of as a double entendre, so to speak, on these otherwise unpleasant physical situations. But it should be mentioned that crab lice, like head lice, do not transmit any infectious disease as far as we know.
Yeah, so they're itchy, they're uncomfortable, they might be unsightly.
Yes.
And we approach treatment the same way. There's a number of topical approaches.
That's right.
And ivermectin can also be used.
Exactly.
But the special thing with pubic lice, think about contact tracing.
Right.
You got this from somebody. It'd be nice
true.
to stop the chain of transmission if possible.
It's probably responsible for a lot of breakups of couples that certainly just met for a few times. I have a feeling that that's true, whereas head lice or body lice probably didn't fall into that category.
All right. I hope everyone enjoyed our lice talk, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Yep. We'll be back soon.